We're actually going to end our explainer with this very quote, but I wanted to start with it too. It's because this line, this chilling line from the very end of Albert Camus' novel, The Plague, it really sets the stakes for everything that comes before it. It's a story about a fight that can absolutely be won, but a war that is never, ever over.
Okay, so let's dive right into this chronicle of a city under siege. Our story is set in the French-Algerian port of Oran. Now, Camus describes this place as well as completely modern, totally ordinary, and pretty tranquil. It's a place where people work hard, they fall in love, they die, and they don't really give a second thought to anything extraordinary. A town, in other words, just like any other. And that is the entire point.
So the story, as told by our anonymous narrator, it doesn't start with some big bang. Nope. It begins with a series of small, kind of unsettling events that just start to pull at the threads of normal life. It starts with something you might just try to ignore. Our main character here is Dr. Ryu, a really steadfast and practical physician. He's got a lot on his mind. His wife is sick and she's about to leave for a sanatorium. So when he nearly trips over this dead rat, it's disgusting, it's weird, but he just brushes it aside. It's just a dead rat, right? A problem for the concierge. But what he doesn't know is that it's the first tremor of an earthquake. You can almost feel the public's mood shifting right here on this timeline. I mean, it goes from an individual annoyance, a gross rat on your doorstep, to this shared, unnerving feeling that the basic rules of life are just breaking down. This isn't just a nuisance anymore, it's an invasion. And then, just as suddenly as it all began, it stops. The streets are clean, and for a moment it feels like the whole city can just pretend it never happened. But that relief doesn't last long. The very same day the last of the rats are collected, the concierge, the guy who was tasked with cleaning them up, he falls violently ill. And the symptoms are terrifyingly specific. A raging fever and these hard, painful lumps, or buboes. And just like that, the crisis has made the jump from animal to human. He dies within hours.
Even as more and more people get sick with the exact same grotesque symptoms, the authorities, they refuse to name the disease. They call it a special type of fever. They just don't want to cause alarm. But Ryu and his older colleague, Dr. Castel, they know exactly what they're looking at. This quote from Castel just perfectly captures their grim frustration. I mean, this is an ancient terror, something from the history books, and it is here. It is plague.
So, the initial response from the officials is pretty weak. Posters about cleanliness, half measures that do absolutely nothing. But the disease doesn't care about bureaucracy. The death toll just keeps climbing, relentlessly, forcing the authorities to make a decision that will change every single life in Oran.
This is the number that shattered the denial. 500 deaths. A week. Just think about that for a second. 500 families, 500 stories ending every 7 days. The abstraction of the disease just became this brutal, undeniable reality. The hospitals were overflowing, the city was in the grip of a full-blown epidemic, and the government in Paris was finally truly alarmed.
And then comes this telegram. Abrupt, stark, and absolute. The gates of the city are locked. No one gets in, no one gets out. In a single moment, the entire population of Iran, hundreds of thousands of people, become prisoners.
And this one single act, closing the gates, it creates the first and most universal consequence of all, the feeling of exile. I mean, think about the people who are just visiting, or people with family just outside the city walls, lovers who had said a casual goodbye just days before. They are all trapped. This feeling of separation, this sudden tearing away from someone you love, it becomes the town's primary emotion. It's a shared suffering that just cuts across class and everything else.
So, closing the gates forces this big moral question on everyone, but especially on a few key characters. When you're faced with an absurd, inescapable reality, what is the right thing to do? Do you try to escape, to fight for your own personal happiness? Or do you stay and confront the suffering alongside everyone else?
This whole conflict is perfectly embodied by these two men, the journalist, Raymond Rambert, and Dr. Rio. Rambert is just a visitor. He got trapped by pure chance. His wife is in Paris, and his entire focus is on escaping to get back to her. He keeps arguing, I don't belong here. But Rio, on the other hand, he's bound by his job, by his duty. He's a healer. His place is here, fighting the disease, even though it's separating him from his own sick wife.
And this is where one of the book's central ideas really takes shape, not because of some government order, but because of individual choice. A man named Jean Tarot, a kind of mysterious visitor with this quiet intensity, he decides that waiting around is not an option. He convinces Ryu to let him organize teams of volunteers. He believes the fight is everyone's responsibility. And this act of solidarity, it inspires others. A clerk named Joseph Grand, who spends his nights trying to write the perfect sentence, he finds a clear purpose here. And eventually, even Rambert joins in, because he decides that being happy all by himself would just feel shameful. So the fight is on. But as summer arrives, bringing this scorching heat, the plague gets even worse. The struggle becomes this grim, monotonous routine against an enemy that you can't reason with, and it seems you just can't stop. This conversation between Ryu and Taro really gets to the heart of Camus's philosophy. Ryu basically calls the fight against the plague a never-ending defeat. Every patient he saves is just a temporary win, because death will always win in the end. The plague will always come back in one form or another. Taro gets it, he agrees. But Ryu's response is everything. Knowing the fight is ultimately unwinnable is no reason to give up. The meaning is found in the struggle itself. As the months of exile just drag on, the plague starts to erode not just bodies, but spirits. That sharp pain of separation, it dulls into this chronic ache. People become like sleepwalkers, just going through the motions. Even their memories of loved ones start to lose their color, becoming abstract. The entire city is just consumed by this collective exhaustion, a desperate desire for it all to just be over. And this chart, well, it shows the brutal reality behind that exhaustion. At its peak, in late summer, the plague is claiming nearly 700 lives every single week. The crematorium works day and night, a constant, horrifying reminder of the city's fate. The fight isn't just against a disease, it's a fight against complete and utter despair. And then, just as inexplicably as it arrived, the plague begins to recede. The death toll starts to fall. But it's in this final act that the Chronicle delivers its most profound and its most tragic lessons. The struggle may be ending, but the accounting has just begun. And here it is, the story's cruelest irony. Jean Tarot, the moral center of the volunteer effort, the man who chose to fight forless out of this profound sense of human decency, he catches the plague just as the epidemic is ending. He dies after a heroic struggle. His death just underscores a key theme. There is no reward for being virtuous. The plague is random, it's absurd, and it is blind. So what about the others? Well, their fates just show how random the plague's justice really is. Rambert, the guy who fought so hard to escape, he gets his happiness in the end. Grand, the quiet clerk, he survives to keep working on his manuscript. But Cottard, the criminal who actually thrived in the chaos, he's destroyed when normalcy returns. And then there's Ryu, the man who fought so tirelessly for everyone else, he gets a telegram telling him his own wife has died, all alone, hundreds of miles away. The fight for the city offered him no personal salvation. So what's the lesson in all this? After all the death, all the suffering, the absurdity, this is the conclusion our narrator reaches. The plague brought out the absolute worst in some people for sure, but it also brought out a quiet, stubborn, compassionate heroism in so many others, in people like Teru and Grand and countless unnamed volunteers. That is the truth that endures. And in the final pages, the narrator steps out from the shadows. It is Dr. Ryu himself. He reveals he wrote this whole account not as a hero, but as a witness. He wanted to create a memorial, to make sure the injustice done to the people of Oran is not forgotten, and to testify to the love, the exile, and the suffering that they all shared.
The gates are finally open. The town is celebrating its liberation, but Ryu, watching the joyful crowds, knows something they don't. This victory isn't final, and this brings us right back to the question that haunts this entire novel.
And this is the final, chilling truth that Ryo understands. The book's timeless warning is that the plague isn't just a disease. It's the capacity for terror, for suffering, for exile that exists within the human condition itself. It can be fought, it can be pushed back, but the bacillus never truly dies. It's always waiting, dormant, for a moment of complacency, ready to emerge once more and teach its cruel lessons to another happy city. The struggle is, and always will be, a never-ending one.